Matt Fidler wanted to escape the uncertainties of Brexit with his guitar music label Thrill Jockey, and ended up in completely different ones. A perfectly normal summer afternoon at the Warsaw Bridge in Berlin. The stream of tourists, which is washed out of the S-Bahn every minute, merges with the typical Friedrichshain mixture of punks, drug dealers and street musicians. The stench of exhaust gases, urine and beer ferments in the heat. A drinking hall in the corner advertises the barley juice as the perfect breakfast drink. So, everyday madness. As a local, you have got used to this image. At the transition between Kreuzberg and Friedrichshain, it is already part of Berlin folklore. One would like to know what the Chicago musician Sam Prekop would see in this part of Berlin. Prekop has an unbiased view of the streets through which he is walking. On his tours, solo and with his avant pop band The Sea and Cake, he has been photographing all the places since the mid-90s, from which one gets a fleeting impression during the week-long touring routine, which often does not go further than from the hotel to the club. After a few weeks, the cities blur into a melange, and his photos give Prekop a sense of reality again. His adopted home Chicago is also well documented. It is the peripheral moments that interest him on his forays. A barricaded building, an empty street. Prekop's photos are currently on view in Berlin. Their presentation is just as casual as the choice of motives. They adorn the walls of the Friedrichshain record shop Bis zum Messer, just a stone's throw from the Raw site. Here they hang between hardcore, indie and folk record boxes, one of the best curated offers in Berlin. Actually, Prekop should have played in July for the opening of the small exhibition in the store. The corona lockdown ruined the plans of his label Thrill Jockey. Now the photos have to speak for themselves. Prekop's new songs, inspired by his street photography, will be released on September 11th on Comma, his 5th album for Thrill Jockey. That is doubtly a shame, because the concert and exhibition were originally planned as a welcome party for the Chicago label, which relocated its London office to Berlin in the spring due to Brexit. Matt Fidler has been operating from a back room of Bis zum Messer since May. In the small room, sheets and cardboard boxes are piled up to the ceiling. In the middle of it all, Fidler sits in front of a computer, manages the business, takes care of promotions and processes the orders. An employee is not much for a medium-sized indie label like Thrill Jockey, which has been taking care of the fringes of guitar music since the 90s. From the post-rockers Tortoise and Trans Am, to Bobby Conn, the Berlin producer Oval, to Lightning Bolt and the black metal band Liturgy. But nowadays it is already a luxury to even afford a European subsidiary as an independent US label. The corona crisis did not make the situation any easier. The time to move was extremely inconvenient. We were just arriving in Berlin when it started, says Fidler in an interview in front of the record store, which is interrupted by sirens every few minutes. But the crisis hit our artists harder than us. Many record stores have reacted quickly in the online business. Our fans are now buying more records with the money they usually spend at concerts. Bus tours, which have long been the most important source of income for musicians, are for the foreseeable future not to be thought about at all. The publications also pile up in autumn. Between the very real corona crisis and the sort of Damocles of Brexit, the future of the music industry is currently uncertain. Many labels in England have to rethink how they will operate in Europe in the future. Most of them are still waiting, says Fidler. But we as a small label have to plan carefully with our financial resources. It was therefore important to anticipate Brexit. At the moment, the consequences are difficult to assess because the government's information policy is very opaque. The Briton Fidler expects lengthy negotiations. It is quite possible that other labels will follow the example of Thrill Jockey. He estimates that Brexit will hit the English music scene in particular. In England, there are fewer and fewer venues for small bands, and if you want to tour Europe in the future, you would have to calculate with higher customs and visa fees. For Thrill Jockey, Berlin was a logical decision regardless of the Brexit vote. London is an expensive place, and label founder Bettina Richards cultivated contacts in Germany early on. She released albums by Mouse on Mars, Schlammpeiziger and Oval. In return, the Berlin label City Slang has licensed bands such as 11th Dream Day, turquoise and the sea and the cake for Europe. Bettina is influenced by the German art scene, especially the do-it-yourself art that came from Berlin in the late 1970s, says Fidler. Someone like Sam Prekop, who moves naturally on the border between music and the visual art, is therefore not atypical of Thrill Jockey, which Fidler describes more as a collective. The bands are in friendly terms and many contacts develop outside of music. Prekop's preferences have also shifted in the direction of Germany in recent years. On Komma, the traces of krautrock and cosmic music, influences like Tangerine Dream, Manuel Göttsching and the work of Cluster with Brian Eno cannot be ignored. The album cover, also on view in the exhibition, shows a bird on a street lamp against a cloudless blue sky. A quote from the first Cluster and Eno album, but also an atmospherically coherent image for the urban spaces that Prekop's minimalist soundscapes evoke. And if you now want to know more about European politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you in the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel, which I hope you already did. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!